This is Suspenders, Unbuttoned, a podcast where friends talk with friends about TV, movies, and books. Hi, welcome to Suspenders, Unbuttoned podcast.
Hi, everybody.
Today we're excited to have Karen Schaler, a three-time Emmy Award-winning storyteller. She's a screenwriter, author, journalist, and national TV host, and recently has been featured in Once Upon a Book Club, Books Clubs, which was really exciting. Welcome, Karen.
Welcome.
Hi.
Karen.
I'm so happy. What a great way to spend a Friday. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. How are you?
Doing well. I mean, it's just so nice to see people, virtually and the few times we can still see in person. Yeah. So I love doing this. I love answering people's questions and just chatting. I mean, don't we all?
Absolutely. We are chatters.
Yes.
Julie, do you want to start off?
Sure. Sure. I was expecting you to start off.
Oh, sorry.
Where do we want to start? Let's start with, you just released a Royal Christmas Fairy Tale. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your newest release?
Oh, twist my arm.
I know, right?
I'm so excited about this one. My very first movie that I wrote that I sort of broke in, and they say, had a royal theme to it. And I'm just going to tell you a tiny backstory to that, and we can talk more if that's of interest. But it's funny, I wrote a traditional rom-com, and the producer at the time said, "Oh, we love it, but do you have anything royal?" And of course, that had been my first one, this other one. But I'm like, I can do royal, of course I can. And what I did was, I also have this other life, as I like to say, my career as a travel journalist. I do a travel show I've created called Travel Therapy. So I had been to the UK, and I had been invited to walk in the footsteps of Will and Kate. Oh. And it was for UK tourism, they know Americans that we're all obsessed with royal news, and they wanted to say, hey, they used to live in Wales on the Isle of Anglesey when Will was in the Air Force, Prince William, to be formal. And
your friend Will.
I know Will, my buddy. They're so charming. They feel like they're your friends, even more so recently, which I like. We've seen a little bit more of the behind the scene and with the kids and all of that. Right. So I was really blessed. I did not get to see Will and Kate. They had then, of course, gone, back to London. So I was invited to Wales to kind of show where they lived and literally walk in the footsteps. This is the favorite place to get a burger. This is where they walk the dogs on the beach, with the hopes that Americans would want to come and recreate. And so here I am with the UK tourism, and I'm being introduced to everybody, and no one would talk to me. And even though I was with the tourism folks trying to bring them tourism, but as you know, the paparazzi has not been kind, an understatement, to the royal family or anyone. I mean, they're paparazzi. Right. Let's be honest. And so they were very protective. And at first, I'm like, wait a minute, I've come all this way as a guest, and I was worried, how am I going to get this story? But then after I got to know them and they got to trust me, it resonated with me how protective they were, and how much it was a community, and how Will and Kate must have felt so safe living there and on Anglesey, and just having that love. So now fast forward to the producer asking me, do you have a royal story? Yes. In my mind, I had to think quickly, and I'm thinking, write what we'll talk about that, right? Some writing tips. And since I'd been a reporter, I thought, what about a reporter? Kind of, you always ramp up in movies and novels, kind of the heightened, what is, maybe not like real life, but what is the biggest thing? And I thought, well, what if a reporter is sent to get the dirt on like this Playboy prince, kind of channeling Harry back in the day when he was a little naughty, as everyone is when they're growing up. And basically she goes in to get this story, only he's a great guy, but her boss, this is her promotion. Her boss wants the dirt, this whole thing. So that's what inspired A Christmas Prince. So flash forward to after A Christmas Prince, doing 3 more movies, and also the novels, which we'll talk about kind of more in order. And this last year with the pandemic, I actually was writing my next novel. I usually write the movies first and then the novel, but this time I had the novel, and I was halfway through a novel. It's a beautiful little novel. I'm sure at some point I'm going to bring it out because I love it. And actually I had interest to make it into a movie. And all of a sudden I just wanted to escape even more than the magical little towns, we create in our Christmas movies. But I don't know. I don't know what it was, but a royal Christmas fairy tale, the idea came to mind. And I was also in a moment myself where I'm seeing so many people pivot, where in careers, where we have to make these decisions because of COVID, because of finances, because our world has changed. And I wanted to do something to honor that. I always try to inspire and empower. I don't start off with like a checklist, but I feel like when you read my books, I want it to be enjoyable, but hopefully give you hope. And so all of a sudden it's terrible to say, but I think it was March or April of last year, I started writing a Royal Christmas Fairy Tale, and it came out in October.
Wow.
And usually most of the authors you'll talk to write a year in advance, like at least a year in advance. So I was just up against this incredible deadline, but I already had the idea for the cover because it was a place in Austria that I had been coveting going to, and I had a picture. So I just went full speed ahead. And so, yes, so A Royal Christmas Fairy Tale is my next royal romance that just came out a few months ago before Christmas. And I always say it doesn't matter that we're talking in January or whenever you get to see this, February, March. We all need Christmas all year long and that joy. And I think the theme of the story about love and about really finding who you are and loving yourself first before you can have your Prince Charming and happily ever after. But it's such a fun little story. And I can tell you more about, a little bit more about it if you like, but I'm doing a little tease now, but it's a whole new story, I should say. Some people thought maybe it was a continuation. And of course, A Christmas Prince already has its 2 sequels, but these are all new characters, but still a similar concept of a journalist. It's still a journalist and there's still a royal storyline, because again, I think it's authentic when you write. If I was somebody in a completely different world, I'll research it. We certainly write different professions, but it's so much fun when you get to write truly what you know.
Right. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, you already lived that life, kind of.
Right.
Exactly.
So I've been reading through it, and you can pick up those pieces that you really know well, and it might be just in something small and like what the character grabs or moves through. And I love those pieces, those tiny details that make things seem so much more authentic. I enjoy that you use what you know in your storytelling.
Oh, thank you so much. And, I'm blessed that my background was as a TV journalist. And so I spent more than a decade covering literally hundreds of stories. I've traveled to 68 countries, from being undercover to working with Interpol, working with the CIA, the FBI, crime reporter, investigative. I was in Afghanistan, embedded with troops, both in Bosnia and Afghanistan. And so I feel like those travels and all those stories. So even if I'm writing about somebody in the military or an architect or a painter, I've probably either done a small part of that or I've interviewed them, meaning I have researched it. So I feel really blessed. It's funny how life tees us up for where we need to be. And, people that know me from, I call it my other life. I was on CNN for a while, and I was a White House correspondent in Washington, D.C. And people go, wait, you cover crime, you won your Emmys doing Warzone, and now you're writing these feel good. And I said, it makes sense. I use those movies and I use those novels as an escape. And now I want to give back, and what more do we need right now, even prior to COVID? We all need an escape. So I love it. I love escaping into the world. I can't remember who said it recently. I'm very honored to be in the Writers Guild. And that is a group where it's a very small group. I think there's only about 10,000 writers that you see doing your television and doing your movies. And that was my goal. When you watch the Oscars and the actors say, I got my screen, my SAG card, that's kind of how I felt, getting into the Writers Union.
Amazing.
And they have been so, I don't know if I could have made it through COVID they bring on all these speakers like Aaron Sorkin, like top screenwriters to talk about their projects. And then we can ask questions, just like today. Hopefully, if people have questions, if they're tuning in, or if watching later, not live, put them down. I will try to get to them. Everyone knows that I do that. Sometimes it's a little delayed, but I really love that because I know how much it's helped me to be able to do the Q&A and really learn from it. But somebody said once, before you start a project, especially a feature film, these Hallmark and Lifetime and Netflix movies, a lot of them that you see, these quick Christmas movies, they're shot maybe in 3 weeks, but feature films can take 10 years. So they say, think about the world you want to live in before you start writing. And so when I wrote the royal story, even though I was living in a lovely little Christmas town with a book that was going to come out, I wanted to go to Talvania. I wanted it big. I needed it. It was a tough year last year, right, guys? I wanted to do a bigger escape. I was going all in for the escape.
That's how this started for us, really. Same thing. You needed a distraction. Yeah.
Exactly. And can I just say, because what you guys do, just like what I'm saying with the Writers Guild, it's so important. You're connecting people and you take the time. It's a lot, you're scheduling with all of us that have crazy schedules. You have lives, you have crazy schedules, and to put this all together. So thank you for having me on and giving me the opportunity to connect, and for what you do for all of us that you have on, and for your listeners and viewers that are watching. It really is special, you guys. Thank you.
Well, we thank you. We love this because we love getting to know people and what they do. And it's just so interesting. So thank you again for being here. Yes.
Of course.
I love that you have such a huge background from your journalism. So, I'm in healthcare. And so when I'm teaching residents, I always talk about how you're building a foundation by getting repeated exposure to different diagnoses and disease states. And that foundation gives you a lot to work off. And I feel from your story, you have so much foundation. It allows you to pick and choose. But yet you also choose to transport us to a magical new place. And as a reader, I often am reading to just escape, because my job is very real. Okay.
Absolutely.
And so I work in critical care, and then I can read this. So I love that you take those pieces, but then also, because I work like that, I love the small pieces. So now that I know that you even have more foundation, I'm just like, I can't read to finish all the books now. So.
Well, thank you. First of all, what you do. I mean, you're an angel in healthcare. I mean that wholeheartedly. And in this novel, if you read my acknowledgments, I even talk about some healthcare workers in my acknowledgments of A Royal Christmas Fairy Tale that made a difference, directly in my life. But all of what you've done, my mom was, and most of my family are school teachers, middle school, my mom. So she was a saint. I don't know what she was thinking, but, jokingly, but really, I think teachers and healthcare professionals, especially, and what's been going on. So that's what I love about books, because I feel like, and movies. I mean, everyone says which one. That's one of the questions that I had on Instagram when I was telling people that you were going to get together, and they were like, so what do you like better? It's like picking a favorite child. They'll say, do you like writing books or do you like writing movies? And 99% of probably who you'll interview have written a book that is then optioned to a movie. Right. That's the hope. And there are some that cross over. And I think visually, I've been in TV, I picked the career when I was 10. I've always worked with a cameraman. I take my photography myself. I love it. When I started my travel show, I had a huge crew. And then, as the economy shrunk, so did my crew, to where I shoot my own things as well. And I love, when social media, came in, it was like, this was fantastic. But, I think at the end of the day that, we all have so many different jobs and so many different things we do. It's just this juggling balance act. So it's hard. I definitely think visually. I don't write a book until I have a cover, and that would be really hard when I'm working with traditional publishers. I was so blessed on my very first opportunity was with HarperCollins, and that's because I had the Hallmark movie coming out, Christmas Camp, and I said, hey guys, I can write the book. And there's a reason, and I'm sure some of your viewers and listeners, depending on how you're watching the podcast, I'm sure that they'll relate. Another big question, that I have, you notice I kind of skirted the other question, but I will come back to it. But I was just speaking to a great group of college students, and, they say, so when you write it, does it change a lot from the time it's made, meaning the screenplay? To which I, completely laugh. You would think going in, well, if they buy it, they must love it. And sometimes you have I've done 4 movies now. Sometimes it's very minimal, like tweaking a little dialogue, for an actor, or a scene is cut for budget. And sometimes, it's a blow up or a start over where they buy your script because they like the idea. Right. And then ideally, if you're lucky, you're the same writer, you get to stay on and you get all the notes from people, and then you get to, create that. That's what's exciting. But what I learned really fast, so A Christmas Prince came out, and I originally wrote that because at the time Netflix was not buying original Christmas movies. And so that's why Christmas Prince is Netflix's very first original Christmas movie that they made. So cool. So I wrote the movie for Hallmark, right? Who, of course, they're the Christmas king, or however you want it, royalty. Let's just summarize it. So I wrote it, and the producer, and we're pitching it, A Christmas Prince to Hallmark. Next thing I know, I'll just fast forward through, it ends up on Netflix. Now that's going to have to be written differently, because even though it was still sweet, heartfelt, and all of that, but it was just, the way that things kind of evolve and that things change. But what I learned most of all is things are going to change. So if you love your story, so then I wrote Christmas Camp thinking I'm on Netflix, right? With the Christmas Prince, it did really well. It's still one of their most watched movies. And so that's why we have the 2 sequels. So I immediately had another script teed up, Christmas Camp, and it was an ensemble because it was about a different group of people that are all having Christmas issues. And I thought, okay, this is perfect for Netflix. It went to Hallmark, and it was like, oh my goodness, and so when it went to Hallmark and they started shooting in summer in upstate New York, I was living in Manhattan, and they start shooting it. And I realized a ton of things are going to have to change because of budget, because Netflix is a different budget than Hallmark traditionally. I mean, that can change, but at least my project was. And so all of a sudden things were going to change. So long and short, by the time I give the baby away, give the book or the movie, the movie, there were so many things I loved that had to be cut. And so I'm like, you know what? I could write the book. Now, this was me not really, I know how hard. I had written a novel about 10 years prior because my family are huge readers and I grew up reading, and I know how hard it is. But I also, this story was embedded in my brain and in my heart. And I'm like, I can do it. So I had my one agent that I had. I didn't have the big movie agents or any of that things. I didn't even have a big literary agent. I had a nonfiction book come out 6-7 years prior called Travel Therapy, Where Do You Need to Go, which launched my travel show. Again, nonfiction, kind of like, the kind that you look, although you picked your trip based on what you needed, like if you're going through a breakup. So it's fun. So I reached out to her, hasn't heard from me in years, and say, hey, I got this idea. I have this movie. I want to write the book, and I want to write the sequel to the book, Christmas Camp Wedding. And she's like, for when? And I'm like to come out in like 7 months, and she's like, no, that's not how publishing works. It takes years. You don't have an agent. Nobody knows you. And I'll never forget. She said, okay, there's only a few to take it out to, meaning the top folks. She goes, I'll give it a whirl. And she was like a Tuesday. And then she called me later that day. She goes, do you have any pages? I'm like, I got a whole script too. No, they're not going to read your movie. I'm like, okay. And she goes, can you give me 25 pages? Okay. And then it went to auction. And everyone started auctioning and bidding. And the funny part is a couple people, top publishers, were like, great, let's see the rest of the manuscript. And then when they found out I hadn't written it yet, I wrote like 25 pages. They're like, okay, we don't have time to publish for this year, So HarperCollins, May Chen, the executive editor of William Morrow, the imprint, she took a huge risk on me. Although she said that she loved the writing and she knew I was a journalist, and journalists tend to write fast because we write every day. But she took a huge risk and what we call crash publish to get that book out, in time so it would come out with the movie. And then the irony was Hallmark did not release the movie in the States. They released it internationally in movie theaters. Okay. And then it came out the next year. Okay. I know. I actually saw my movie in a movie theater. Wow. I got a call. This was crazy. I write a TV movie and I get a call from Toronto, and I'm in New York. So it's a hop skip, right? It's like an hour and a half. And I get a call, your movie is playing. It's right around Halloween, a lot when the Christmas movies come out, and a theater in Toronto. Wow. I'm like, what do you mean a theater? Like streaming on what is theater.com? I mean, like, what are you talking about? They're like, no, like in a real theater. So I got 2 of my girlfriends. We flew in. I bought a ticket. I stood by the movie poster. I documented the whole thing. I'll have to send it. It's this cute little video. And it's all about me seeing my first movie for the first time in a movie theater.
That's crazy.
I know. And it was released internationally. Something about distribution way above my pay grade. And then it came out the next year, 2019, but it came out as Christmas in July, when they have the big, so they released it in July. It was they always release one new one. Yeah. So, and then I created Christmas camps, and we could talk about all that stuff. But the journey of Christmas camp taught me that if you're precious about your story and the journey of Christmas Prince, if you have the ability, even if you can't write a whole novel, write a novella, write a short story, but if there's stuff in your movie that you're precious about, it will very likely be changed. So it was sort of my therapy to also be an author, and it was also my door in. So I've always wanted to be an author. This is so awesome, So I really can't say. I will say I definitely see it first. And people that read it say it's super fast to read. That's because I do I'm more of a movie writer. I do a lot of dialogue. Okay. And then most people say they love it because they can see everything come to life like a movie. I'd say 98%. There's still about 2% of reviews. I read every review because everybody's opinion matters to me. Even the haters, I go, okay, they're having a bad day, but maybe there's something valid, something I missed, right? You never know. I don't just say, oh, it's a 3-star or 2-star. I'm not reading it. No, I try, even though some people say you shouldn't read the good or the bad, but I'm learning. I want to learn from the people that took the time to read the book and to review. And a couple people people have said, it feels like a movie. I feel like I'm in a movie. So they aren't happy because it's too movie-like.
I have to say that I listened to Christmas Camp on Audible.
Oh,
you could just really picture everything, so that when I actually watched the movie, I was like, oh, well, like, I know what this scene is, and but it should be this and this and this and this.
And you were probably really sad.
very vividly see it.
That makes me so happy. Yes. I don't know how to write. It's not like I try. It's just, I think all the years of writing, when you're a journalist and you're on the scene of a story, it's your job to tell the story, and the photographer's getting video, to cover the story. So my whole life I've written visually. And so if I had started younger, probably I would have loved to have been a director as well, because as I'm writing, I see it. I see camera angles. I see everything, in my head. And as a journalist, we don't have directors, of course, but executive producer is a lot different in journalism than the name is in a movie. But I was definitely a producer, boots on the ground. So when I went to Afghanistan, I didn't have a crew of 9. I wasn't a correspondent that got to be in the hotel, look pretty, show up. I did everything. I did the research. I drove the car. It was a photographer and myself. Every single thing I did, I was also the producer, organizing it. And that's how my career was. So when I'm writing, I'm always like looking for collaborations where I can be like, hey guys, I do a travel show. I know a hotel that'd be great for this because it's probably somewhere I've been, and that's where I got the idea. And I also know the manager, and I know the owner,
Right.
So somebody said, is that a dream to be a director? And Jeff Fisher, who directed Christmas Camp, who I actually was not on the set for Christmas Camp. You're not on the set for a lot of them. And I didn't get to meet him until later, but I learned a lot. And he was the one, because he had listened to the podcast, and he was like, oh, she's going to be he was worried I'd be upset, because a lot was cut. I go, the only thing I was upset about, and no spoiler alerts for anybody, but for you, Sarah, since you did read both, is and it's not giving anything away. It's just one of the beautiful things that I also honor in my real life Christmas camps. But I say that the stars in the sky represent the people that we've loved and lost, always looking down on us. And like, I always wear like a little star, for the same reason, for the people that, I've loved and lost. So they're always with me. And it was a scene that was really important to me. And in my real life Christmas camps, we go out like for s'mores and cocoa, but we have chairs that kind of to remind us of the people that aren't with us. We all take a moment, whether it's silently or whether we like to share. And people have said Christmas camp, we do all these fun events, just like you see in all the movies. I bring it to life, but people love that. And I just said to Jeff, how hard is it to show the twinkle lights in the sky one time? Come on now, So jokingly,
right.
Of course,
right, because they did like the wishing well, I think. Instead,
yes,
right?
exactly. And the pine cone. I mean, hello, the pine cone is so much easier. Like when you come to Christmas camp, you walk in, there's a basket of pine cones, and you get your pine cone to make your Christmas wish. But what I have learned, and what's exciting, it's weird, as a journalist, I went out on the street with everybody. Like literally they would say, go to this scene. And I would live in what we call the live truck, and I'd be reporting live at 5, 6, and 11, or depending on where you live. I was around people constantly. As an author, it's so lonely. I mean, you're all alone. You're sitting there quietly, which obviously during the pandemic has been a good thing to be safe. So when Jeff wants to, let's say I was in a room with Jeff and he wants to do the wishing well, there's 50,000 people, once you sell your movie, that have a better idea. Maybe wishing wells skewed really high in Hallmark movies, and they're romantic. They are. It's way more romantic than picking up a pine cone. Let's be honest. It is,
Right.
So it's kind of fun that you create an idea and that you have all this collaboration and all these people around you that are elevating it. And sure, you fight for your darlings, but at the end of the day, you have no say. Once you sell your, your script, you can fight, and you hope. And what I've learned is it's really about finding good collaborators that do listen and go, okay, Karen, when I did my Toni Braxton movie for Lifetime, Every Day is Christmas, she wanted to be the Scrooge. And that's all we had to start. And the collaboration was ongoing. I wrote the script specifically for her. It wasn't a script that she got cast. I literally wrote it for her, where I could get her input. But I also had the producers going, you're not doing that. That's way too expensive. And the executives do, oh no, we're not bringing a kid in. You know how much it is to bring a kid in? And I'm like, we're keeping the little girl. If you see the show, you'll see why. So the little girl stayed. So but I have to, they're honest. They're like, okay, Schaler, show me why that little girl is worth this much. They're the bottom line people, right? So you better make her a very important part of the story. So you kind of learn those things like, wow, if you're going to have a big event or a big group, it better be a real part of the plot. We're in a novel, we get to have so much fun. We just get to create these worlds and not worry about budgets and directors and somebody's cousin that wants to do this dog because he has one at home. I have not had that. I have not had that. hypothetically.
Karen, do you think that you'll ever do all of it yourself, like direct it, produce it? Like, is that in your future?
Oh, such a good question. I wish it was in my future, but I fear like at the moment where I have my travel show that I'm about to get going again with travel therapy, and I love it because it feeds my stories where I travel around the world picking the most inspiring, empowering trips based on what you're going through. So if you're stressed, you're healing from something, or you want to celebrate romance. And that takes up a lot of time. And then I'm writing movies right now and also starting to write a TV series. And so with that, and then also, you know, my novels. And I have my Christmas camps, which is its own entire bringing my Christmas camp movie and book to life, but also every year, whatever new movie or books I do, if you come to the camp, it'll be a new experience. That's going to be a full-time job times 7. Wow. That said, when going into TV writing, the writer is much more involved. If you're a showrunner, if it's your show, you are casting. You are, as you know. Whereas a feature writer, it's more write it, give it away, see ya, hope you get invited to the premiere. You might not, you know. So, but I would love, whenever I'm around good directors, I just try to soak it all up. And I think, wow, that's such a special skill. So a writer director would have been, had I known what I knew, you know, at that age, I think that would have been the goal, you know, to do both. And the women that do, and men, I'm just in awe of, because that's a lot, you know. But it's true, when you're writing, I'm sure you guys as well, you see it, right? And sometimes you're frustrated because you're like, I want to show it to this person. I want them to see it like I see it. And that's where you better be a good writer, and you pray that your writing resonates, or that you have a really good way of getting in there and sharing it.
So have you ever been on the set of any of your movies being made?
Yes, I was so excited. It was my 3rd movie. And so it was my Tony Braxton movie. And that was for Lifetime. And like I was sharing a little bit, they all were such different experiences. You know, it was so different. So Christmas Prince, it was an idea. And I wrote what's called the spec script. So it wasn't paid. I just wrote it. And then we ended up selling it to Netflix. Okay. And then Christmas Camp, I also wrote what's called the spec script. I had it ready to go, thinking it'd go to Netflix. And so those were 2 that I did on my own time and everything. Well, that same year that Christmas Camp was going to come out, that's when Lifetime, I had pitched another spec script to them, and they really liked it, but they hadn't come in, and I thought, maybe they're going to buy, you know, my latest spec script. And by the way, that's kind of rare. Usually a spec script is your resume, and then you do something else, and you work with them, or you develop from a 1-sheet idea. The fact that mine got bought, you know, was very special. So on this one, when they brought me in, I'm all thinking we're talking about one movie, and they say, but you know, we have Toni Braxton, and she's going to be our showcase. It's going to be amazing, and this is what we're doing. And I'm listening, going, that sounds fantastic. And I'm thinking, okay, let's, you know, when are we going to talk about my movie? You know, right? And then they said she wants to be Scrooge, and that's all we know. And I'm like, okay, that's fantastic. It's always challenging taking one of the most beloved stories in the history of, you know, the earth. And then they said, do you want to pitch for it? And I was such a new writer. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm thinking pitch. So I said, sure. And they said, okay, we're asking a lot of writers, some of the top writers, and, you know, to be honest, big writers, in LA. I was in New York at the time. In LA, some of the people Tony knows, but, you know, we like your writing, we'll give you a shot, which is such a generous thing. So all these people were pitching ideas. And long story short, they asked one line, which I can't tell you because it's a spoiler alert. They just said we wanted one thing, and I didn't do it. Because when I started writing, I just didn't feel like Toni Braxton, it would work. And so when I came back in for a meeting, I remember the executives kind of pushed the paper toward me. They're like, did you not get we gave you one note, you know, did you not get the one note? And I explained why. And then I get the call that, you know, Toni, and then they picked me. And so I was shocked. I was just like, because I had just gotten the publishing deal with HarperCollins, not to write just Christmas Camp, but to write Christmas Camp Wedding to come out in one was going to come out in October, one was going to come out in January, and Christmas Camp was coming out. So now I have a movie coming out. I have 2 novels to write and a movie for Toni Braxton also for that year.
Oh my gosh.
2018 is a complete blur. But to answer, it's a very long answer. That was my favorite, I shouldn't say favorite, but experience in terms of, it was a sentence. She wants to be Scrooge from start to finish, meaning I did get to go on set. And even when they were editing, after everything shut down and they have to make room, I was in Spain on another project, and they're calling me saying, okay, here's the video. It's 15 seconds. We need her to say this as soon as her lips turn, because sometimes you're adding those things in.
Right.
You don't know till you're done editing. So I got to be part of post-production. I got to be part of everything. So it had special and close to my heart. It was also shot in Canada, like so many are, as you guys know.
Yep.
And my mom is in Washington State, so I got to bring my mom with me on a couple of the days. And it's not a party. These movies are shot fast, and you literally, there's no room, literally, even we were shooting a lot in this one house. And so I remember we're like in the garage, and like that's where they usually set up, where the director and the director of photography and the DP and everything is. And I know we're in a garage in the summer. It's hotter than
so
you
glamorous.
It's not glamorous. And you know what? Let me just say a shout out to Tony. And I don't even know if she'd want me saying this, but it just shows, even though she is a diva and we love divas in a good way, the least diva-ish thing, I just think she would go out of her way to say hi to my mom. Hi, Mom. Knowing my mom was a big thing. But instead of her having this big fancy trailer like you would expect, she sat in the SUV with the $1.99 plastic battery fan, right, on her face. Yes. She was so awesome. I mean, and because everyone's moving so fast and doing what they do. And like I said, I don't know if Tony, how some people like Tony that are so amazing want to be known as a diva. And if she does, I'm sure she is in many other areas. But on a set, I've never seen a woman work harder. And a funny side story, you're getting all these behind the scenes. That's why I do these, right? We got to get the behind the scenes.
Right.
So the director who, of course, I hadn't met any of these people, and David Weaver, he's also Canadian. He was fantastic, but I was a little nervous. He said he was nervous having the writer on set because some writers are very, again, precious. And if they had to change, but because I was on set, and then Lifetime executive, Chris Wade, he also was visiting. They're not usually on the set all the time. They might pop in or pop out. So it was awesome because I knew him from New York. So here we all are in, Vancouver. Right. And he shows up, and I remember there was a scene, and they're like, well, what do we do? We're running out of light, time of day. We're running out of time. And they go, well, your network executive and your writers are right here. Why don't you ask them? And usually that's not the case. There'd have to be calls and people would discuss, and that'd be money, So we got to do that. And then I remember that the director was so cute. And I didn't know, keep in mind, I'm still a pretty new screenwriter. I write the movies, they give notes, I change them, the movies are made. So he's like, Tony's just working. Like, and that's because she was in almost, I don't even know if there was a scene without her, like almost every scene. And he goes, hey, next time you got to give your lead a break. She doesn't have to be every scene. You see where they cut away to the co-stars, right? Yeah. And I said, but Lifetime had said, she's Toni Braxton. We want her in every scene. So I said, well, what? And that's where it's fun. You get different, even during the production, you might have Tony say one thing, her manager say one thing, an executive producer and Lifetime, all different. And they go, okay, Karen, do that. Right. And so I said, it is not screenwriting, it's therapy, or I'm going to need therapy. And I'm like, who do you listen to? Do you listen to the star? Do you listen to the executive? Do you listen to the network? I mean, it's like juggle. Right. I remember one time it was something really small, but I go, y'all figure it out and call me when you're done. I'll do whatever you want, because they're like, what do you think? What do you think? You do think this, right? And I'm like, who do I agree with? But yeah, being on set, if you're a screenwriter and you ever have the opportunity, sometimes it's very inconvenient because it's someplace, crazy far away. A lot of times, depending on your contract, if you're a bigger person, of course, you get to be on set with certain projects and they pay and all of that. If you're smaller starting off, not so much. They might be like, pay your own way, but we'll allow it. And if they do, you take it up on it. You learn, just like what we're talking about, how I can share some of these behind the scenes. I learned a small thing with Christmas Camp. There were a lot of, because it was an ensemble, there was a lot of group scenes, and I saw a lot of them were cut when I saw the movie. I was like sad about that. Like when they were all looking for pine cones and making their little, special things at the end, their ornaments or things like that. On Toni Braxton, there was this, they're all playing Pictionary, Christmas Pictionary, which I always have in my books, and all my novels have recipes and games from the movies. If the movies haven't been made yet, I always hope that when I do the movie, it'll be incorporated. But I remember seeing how hard it was to shoot a group scene, and the director explained why. So I want you guys to watch, and everybody that's listening, start watching even big budget movies. Often if it's a group, they're sitting around a table eating, because that's easier to shoot. You won't have them all or watching TV sometimes, but almost all the time. So I had them playing Pictionary where they were getting up and they were doing things and people were, and they said it was so hard to shoot. They had to do all the back and forths, all of that stuff. So he said, if you're going to do a group scene, same, make it worth it, make it really move the plot forward, which is any scene. You shouldn't have something that doesn't. But if you're going to do something that's going to be taxing, I would never have even thought of that. That wouldn't even have been in my mind. So I have each of the movies has a special place in my heart. It's just, I guess, like little children, and same with my novels. But my Toni Braxton movie, just because it was a really healthy experience from day one, and I learned exponentially in that movie.
Absolutely. I love how that everyone brings a piece and you add that to your pile, your foundation to build on for the next project, whatever that might be.
Exactly. And it is building. We all learn from each other. And I know that I've heard from some directors that they say screenwriters, sometimes they're very, I keep using the word precious, or they're very protective of their script. But what they have to realize, and it's why I also, when I speak about writing, I know it's easier because I worked in news where I wrote 3 stories a day. But, so a lot of people have a story they've worked on 10, 15 years, and they're just trying to get it better. And what I try to tell them is it's going to get changed. Right. Especially, if it's a novel, and you're self-publishing, you can take and do whatever you want. But even if a novel, an editor reads it, they're going to ask for changes. So do your best and put it together. But don't spend 15 years. Get it out there. Learn. I've learned so much just by what's cut, what I'm asked to do. I'm doing a project right now that I'm really excited about. It's a big budget Christmas feature, a musical. And I'm crossing my fingers, but from the producers that have made big award-winning things, I'm getting great notes that are elevated from what I learned, because it's where the money goes up and what I get to do goes up. So does the learning curve of what I need to learn and what needs to happen, So if you're someone that's just going to grab your script and go, this is it, I don't want anybody to touch it and whatever, then I say, go write a novel, or do both, or have your screenplay and know they're going to change it and don't, need therapy, write a book. Or write a blog, or write an Insta post, or write some stories on Insta. Do something, but you have to play ball. And the biggest thing I tell people, if you're out there an aspiring screenwriter, is make sure you check out the producers that you're going to get in bed with, because at the end of the day, that's the first step. They're gonna pitch you. An agent doesn't usually take your stuff and say, hey, right to the network. They can, but they like to pair up now. They like to what they call like package. So there'll be maybe a producer or maybe a star. So you could have this great project, but if you have some crazy celebrity star that ends up, it's a Disney movie and they end up going off getting drunk on the front page, your movie you worked on for 10 years could be done. Right? Because now your star has gone AWOL or, crazy. So you really, really got to look at very, very carefully all the people, and you want to make sure your producer's reputable. And it's Hollywood. It's no lie, the stories you hear. It might be writing, for me right now, writing Christmas movies, but just because it's sweet content doesn't mean it's any less rough in terms of knowing how to play the game and trying to play fair.
Wow. Yeah. I think that often you forget about that because you're reading these little cute escape romances and things, but it's probably very cutthroat, everything else except for the story.
Yes, it's so true. And what's nuts is I was an investigative, and still say that I am, a reporter. So I covered hardcore stuff, obviously in my career, and no one got anything by me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a stickler for the truth. I stand up for people that can't speak for themselves. That's who I have been to the core. But when I went into Christmas at the very beginning, I was just so like, oh, these are great movies. And this person, I researched and I did all of that. But boy, even the smaller the circle, like Christmas movies, it's like a little mafia almost. And I hate to say the word mafia, but they're all, everybody knows everybody. And you better not, like a small town, you better not mess with this person. And also if you partner with the wrong person and it's a flop, you're not going to get invited back to the party. You might not. So I was not prepared. I was not prepared, for the business side of it, even though I had a great entertainment attorney. And that's what I said. Even when you can't afford the attorney, you can't afford not to have an attorney, and my attorney is fantastic and all of that. But all of that said, doesn't matter if you are doing sweet novels or sweet movies or making candy, for Valentine's Day. It's a business. And whenever there's a business, doesn't matter what business, there's going to be someone that can take advantage or someone that plays dirty. And so you've got to go in with open eyes. And I just say, don't go in negative. Don't, bring past experiences in, but be ready and be smart and just get everything lawyered if you can.
Right.
And even when you're lawyered, sometimes they look at contracts. I've heard stories about, they look at contracts and go, oh yeah, it's there, but that's okay. You're nobody. We're going to do it anyway. Sue us. And it costs you more to fight. So I've heard those stories. So you could have the perfect paperwork and that might still not add up. So just like what you do, I'm sure in healthcare. And Sarah, I didn't even ask. So tell me, what do you do to keep yourself way too busy?
Well, I'm a mom right now.
That's the biggest job. That's the biggest one.
I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. 2 of them are homeschooled by me. So.
Oh my goodness! So you're a teacher and a mom, and you're doing. I don't know how.
Yes.
Oh my goodness! I don't know how you do it. I mean, I watch the parents, especially with the pandemic, and how you guys have been able to talk about pivoting. And one of my producers that's attached to one of the movies, he has a couple little kids at home and he's a big deal producer. And he's like, nope, can't talk now because my wife, who's also a big deal, they take turns of who can do Zoom calls, and he'll be on the phone with
the Zoom
stars and his little kids are running. I'm at my friend's house right now. She has 2 cute little chihuahuas, which I'm super proud of them. They are named Pixie and Lulu, and they're angels. But if someone comes to the door, I mean, of course they're going to bark. So we'll cross our fingers if they make an appearance. They're usually sitting behind me on the couch. They like to sit like little cats. Like a little perch. You probably noticed in all of my novels, I have dogs. Circling back, and they're very important. And I always put them on the cover because they are my star. The funny story, my very first book with HarperCollins, the copy editor goes through, and Max is in Christmas Camp is like a big deal. He's like a main character to help Haley really see her character arc. And so he's on the cover. He's this beautiful golden retriever. And of course, in the movie, they got a different dog and all of that. But when I got back my copy edit for my novel, she had changed Max, because I'm like, Max trots in, Max gives her a look, Max. She's changed it to the dog. For all of it. And it was like, the dog walks in. I'm like, the dog? I'm like, no, And so I asked my editor, can I please have my name back? And because they're a character, and she agreed, of course. We go, obviously the editor was not an animal person. But the funny part was when I did my latest novel, A Royal Christmas Fairy Tale, if you look at it, you're going to think there's no dog because it's a wide shot. It's this beautiful, dreamy shot of what I've called Talvania. It's actually a real city in Austria that has been the magic of pictures and my fabulous artists changing things around. But I'm like, no, Blixen, the dog, spelled the way it's supposed to, not like the reindeer, because when you're little, you don't spell it properly or say it properly, is on the dock. So if you have the book, everybody go back and look. He's on the dock. And he's like, where's Waldo? He's there, and he's wearing a little red scarf.
Cute. I love that.
So you mentioned that you always start with a cover. So do you already have your ideas, and then before you write it all out, you get your cover ready and in your visual? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. What I do is I have a title first. So I have to have a title. Okay. And then I tweaked the title. I tweak titles on movies all the time. That's because I have to, because it's not my, I have favorites and then they get changed, and sometimes it's licensing and legal at way above my pay grade, that they do.
Right.
But for my novels, I was very blessed that HarperCollins let me keep my titles. And I then, during the pandemic in 2020, started my own publishing company because it was going to be hard with Harper. I'm sure with how backed up the books and everything were. It would be too hard to get out. And because I do movies and books so quickly, it made more sense. Although, let me tell you, it's one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life to self-publish, realizing now I have control of everything. Yay! I have control of everything. Oh my gosh!
A lot of work.
Oh my gosh! Right. And Harper let me, like when Christmas Camp was a movie first, and I had an idea of a cover. I wanted it to be a door you would want to walk through. Mine are always someplace you want to go into in my mind. So Christmas Camp is a door with Lil Max, and how you'd want to go inside this charming place. So I had that cover. I always know the beginning and the end of all my stories, always. And the middle, which in the movies we call the second act, and novels, the majority of the pages there, the middle is just all of the story that happens. But I have to know what the arc's going to be in terms of what are they going to have to overcome, what is the issue, and then all the fun things that get in the way. That's like, yay, fun things that I create as I go. I don't outline. I might start outlining, only not outlining like some authors do that are amazing. like full outlines. I might start bullet pointing, because now that when I started doing 2 or 3 different jobs, it's like, okay, this 2 hours I'm going to work on a screenplay, and then put on my author hat. This 2 hours I'm going to work. I was lucky. I was able to get one done before the next one. And I would do like 19 hours a day to do it that way. But I'm starting to get to where I'm going to have to work on multiple projects at the same time, the same day, which most people do. But I just was like, I like to do it differently. So I might start like bullet pointing, but I always have the cover. And I also do mood boards for both my movies, like kind of like Pinterest, where I see it. Like I'll see the little cafe and the candy canes, or the white poles wrapped in candy cane. I see it so visually, like it doesn't stop in my head. And so I write it down, and then it even helps me to just go, and I literally Google candy cane city poles, and then something might pop up, and I put it, in a thing, and I create nothing fancy. It's not like I even share it. I shared it once on my last movie, on one of my last movies, 2019, Rediscovering Christmas for Lifetime, because it was such a short turn. They were in a hurry. And I gave to the director, I'm like, if this helps at all. And it did. Right. He said it was great, because I'm not the director, or the producer. You got to be careful. Some people are like, awesome, more the merrier. Some people are like, hello, get it back in your little lane. He was great. He's like, you over there, so yeah, I don't know. I'd love to hear. I mean, I've got to meet now some amazing authors. When I did Rama Drama, we did the first one in July. Jenny Hale was there. And I actually thought of her because I knew she lived in Nashville, because at one point we were going to have the same publisher, and the publisher had said, oh, you two are so alike. You write the same. I think you'd really like each other. So we started following each other on Twitter, and she helped me when I self-published to find my interior designer. And now she's self-publishing as well, awesome. So it's just been this amazing journey. But she told me she outlines everything. Like she's like very different. And and then Nancy, and we listen to all these different authors, and they go do. And I'm like, wow, that's so different. Or, oh, we all do that. So I think that's kind of fun too. I write in the mornings only. I write before the world gets in the way, I say. So I get up, I don't talk to anyone. I imagine that. And I just write, and try not to get interrupted. And I try to schedule fun things like this in the afternoon is my reward.
I love that you said that you bullet point. Sarah will know that is definitely my preferred way of writing. I'm, critical care, that I'm more of a bullet point person, not a writing the sentence. So I am like super pumped that you write that way. I'm like, I can relate. But it's that journalism piece, and that's background and investigation. I know that's what's playing into that's the way you think. You bullet it out. Yeah.
Well, and think about it. And in critical care as well, things are happening so fast. And my brain, thank you, seriously, thank you, God, my brain works that fast. So when I get the creative ideas, I can't write that fast. Right. And if I were trying to outline and make it all pretty, they literally go away. So when I get them, I'll be writing over here, and I always have, and I used to have a notepad. I've used my phone. Like if I showed you, my phone's here. If I showed you my phone notes, I think I have 28,000. I mean, I'm not kidding you. It's like nuts. But I'll be in the grocery store and I'll see something, and I have a page, and I jot it down. And so I feel like the pressure is taken away. People go outlines. Oh, I do that when I have to do a screenplay one, because it's like in the Writers Guild, there's like, you get paid for a script. There's actually a payment for an outline, a treatment, a payment for, different things. So a lot of people want you to outline. It's very common. And I remember I did 3 movies before I had to do an outline, and I was like, I guess I kind of got away with it, by writing the whole script first and doing it that way. But yes, if you get hired, you're going to likely have to do some kind. Now, some outlines are 7 pages. Some people write 30 pages, which I think is insane, because you could be writing the book. And I don't know, you guys writing, don't you start writing? Like I write, remember, I know the beginning and end, but the middle, I'll be like, oh, let's say I said there was going to be a sledding race. And I get in there, I'm like, that so doesn't fit anymore based on where I've gotten in the story. Right. I don't want to be pigeonholed into, because it's in my outline, feeling like, oh, I'm going up outline. Did I screw up back here? I just want to have more freedom. But I do think it's important to have your key moments, your characters, knowing where there's going to be, where you can reel yourself in. I do that editing though, too, where I reel in and go, okay, that's too long, or that's boring. I'm so lucky. I have my moms. I have my mom, and I call her like my second mom, who is, part of my life. They both read everything I write, and they'll just tell me, this is too long. This doesn't make sense. Because sometimes in your head, your story so well, and you do shorthand, especially in screenwriting. And they're like, wait, what? And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I forgot to set that up on that page. Sorry. Or the dog will be wearing a red sweater and then 10 pages later he's in a green sweater. I'm like, oh, did I mention he changed?
He changed his sweater.
I know.
In his closet.
Exactly. I know. I'm just like, hey. I think that's what's so much fun.
I love that your mom and your second mom read your stuff for you. That hits very home to me. I left everything I wrote all the way through pharmacy school on my mom's table, and she read everything.
Oh, so, how lucky are we? I mean, honestly, I know every day, but what a blessing they are, because I feel like it's a safe place. Did your mom read a lot? Because my mom reads a novel every day.
We're big readers, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah,
same. And that's why I grew up wanting to be a novelist, because I figured, I didn't know when I was that little that I could do movies. I didn't, you know what I mean? I'm talking like I started writing when I was in like 7 years old, writing stories in those little journals, those little diaries my mom would buy me. Like literally my mom said I started talking, but then telling stories, like make believe stories. Like at the store, I would see somebody and say, oh, that little girl, she was in the circus and then she ran away with a poodle. Like I would just make stuff up on mom and be like, what? So apparently my overactive imagination, but I think it's so special that our moms, that we're blessed enough to have them when we do have them, and she enjoys it. And, my second mom, my mom's name is Leo, which is L-A-O, a very unusual name.
I love it.
My grandpa was just super creative. And my second mom, I call her my stepmom, I suppose, would be Kathy. Kathy is a little more critical, because I said, Mom, it can't always be, I love it so much.
Yeah.
I go, so they've gotten to the point where they're like, and my mom's read enough, sweet romances, where she's like, And I have her read my competition. I don't read my competition because I'm afraid, and I guess because I don't think of it as competition, but I'm afraid that what happens if I'm very spongy. What happens if I read something and then all of a sudden I have that in mind? My gingerbread man is wearing mittens, that are made by an aunt, but I think it's my creative, but I read it somewhere. Right. So, but I do want to know how the stories are going, especially, our like Debbie Makelmer, our goddesses of authors that, you can learn from. And she's from Washington State, where I'm from in Washington State. So we love her, have not met her, but, she's kind of the Christmas queen of novels. And so I keep having my mom read her things to, see what's different or special. I had her read my friend Jenny's, Jenny Hale, who is also amazing at, what she does. And then some of the comps that aren't how I want to write, that's not the message I want to give, or maybe a little more raunchy or whatever. And that's nothing wrong with that. There's a lane for everybody, but kind of just to know. And then mine are definitely sweet, but I'd like to think still contemporary and, the way, and I'm not like stuck on, there can only be a last kiss at the end. I can certainly write more than that, but there has to be a reason. I'm not going to just throw in, gratuitous affection for no reason. I think that's how it should be in life too. Right. There should be a reason.
Right. Exactly.
When you start skipping over some of those scenes like that, it's just a little too much.
Yes. Who was I reading? Somebody said that. Somebody else said that about like steamy. They were talking about the level of steam or the level of heat, I guess. And they were like, 2 pages to 3, okay. Anything more, overkill. And it was like an overall. It was interesting though that people are like, okay, I'm into this to get the feel of where we're at in the relationship, but we don't need to go on and on and on and on. So.
And we don't need to hear about it every time. Like
exactly.
I get it. You want to move the story forward, and then it just doesn't.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
I always think of Cheers. We all watched Cheers to see if they were going to get together. Right. And when they did, even though it continued a little bit, it was kind of, we were happy for a while. And then they had to break up again. Yeah. But, there's only so much, and then when they're together, there's only so much, like you said, how much okay, we get it. You're together. You love each other, whatever, or you lust after each other, whatever it might be. But let's move on. That's what I do love about movies. My personality, I'm obviously a big talker in terms of I love to talk. And as a news reporter, people laughed. I'd tell a story every day in a minute and a half, which is 90 words, the way my rate of speech. And I'd be there all day reporting on a story, and I got 90 words to summarize it. And so even when I'm in movies, though, it has to move fast, even especially the last few years. And I love that. Okay, what can I do to make sure that you see it? And 2 lines for the director so he or she can see it, right? And do that. And it's like a puzzle. Like I see it, and how do I get them to? In a novel, I just can go, blah, 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 and edit myself later. But in a movie, there's a lot more rules to that. and to make it concise. And it really is a puzzle, but it's so much fun.
So would you say because of those sorts of things that screenwriting is actually a little bit more challenging because you have to do a lot more with a lot less in a way?
Well, that's such a good question. And I think it's the way that each person's brain kind of works, because I think as a writer, for me, I can write a screenplay, and a screenplay is usually, let's say, 100 pages, on average. It's one page is equals a minute. So if you're doing, an hour and a half, 90 pages, but, usually have a little pad there. And for me, it's so much easier because I like dialogue is just right down the middle if you ever get to see a screenplay. But this is a puzzle we talk about. And there are rules if it's a feature, after the first act, you have to start a journey. You have to go somewhere that you haven't gone because you have a flaw. Every character has to have a flaw, whether you know it or not. And then they have to be launched into this journey. And sometimes I have these beautiful stories. I have a story I'm working on now, but the journey wasn't her choice. Something happened to her. And somebody said, well, it wasn't her decision. If it's not her decision, it's not her journey. So yes, this was launched upon her. Like, let's say she was kidnapped. Well, it wasn't her choice to be kidnapped. So how is that her journey? So, so that's where in screenplays, I'm like, oh, we're in a book, I'd be cruising along and it'd be this amazing story. So for me, it's easier to write a screenplay because the screenplay is 100 pages and my books are usually close to 400. So the time involved, and I see it and it's fast. So I suppose you could say the first two that I wrote, movies, I did have an outline for my novels because I did have screenplays.
Yes.
And then I can write the novels very fast because I've already seen it. I know the characters. Royal Christmas Fairy Tale was one of the first and Christmas Ever After, the one I wrote the year prior, the two that I did as self-publishing, because I had people wanting the movies, but I hadn't written the movies. And, there's no guarantee when you write one, it's going to be sold. I thought I'll get the IP and get the book out there first, and it'll be like easier to sell the movie. And then I have both properties and stuff, but it was a little harder because I hadn't figured it out. I thought I'll just write and I'll figure it out. And it took longer, even though I can write fast. So that's a very long answer. I think it really depends on who you are. Yeah. I personally think I'm a more natural screenwriter, but my family, friends, editors, people at Harper said I'm a natural author. So maybe I'm just more hard on myself because there's such beautiful writing, and I don't write high lit. I'm not going to win. I won an Emmy, but I'm not going to win a Pulitzer. I'm not writing those beautiful prose. I write quickly. I say laughs probably 1,000 times where I shouldn't. I don't say chuckles, kerfunkles, or giggles or smirks. I mean, I do, but the idea is, okay, that they're laughing, move on. Even as a reader, I want you to get to the good stuff, and so I'm never going to I hope that my writing's, entertaining, and I'm so excited with Once Upon a Book Club. I was so honored because I think what they do, bringing the books to life, is so amazing. And then also the opportunity that I've had when I went to Rama Drama, which, by the way, I have to say, if anyone is wanting to meet our fabulous Hallmark, Lifetime, Netflix, the stars, the men and the women, it's coming up in June. It's June 24th through 26th. I know. I just have to say, I can't wait. And a quick little sneak peek. We were planning to do this, but Jeff Fisher, the director, and Lillian Harrison, the star of Christmas Camp, they're doing a special panel. And so we're super excited about it. And I have the hardcover. Sarah, you'd appreciate the hardcover. HarperCollins gave me the last 100. That's it.
Oh, wow.
The paperback and audio will be out forever, but the hardcover was a special limited edition. And so I'll be doing those at Rama Drama. So I have to say that because people are like, what's next? And I don't get to do many events because of time, but I believe in Rama Drama so much. It's so special. So,
so you were at the first one.
Yes, I was. And it's, well, the difference that I felt from what I had heard of other similar fan events where, you bring out the celebrity, and I've even been in, doing travel where I come out and I speak for a half hour, right? And then I go home. But there, what was so great is, it's $29 and you come in, and sure, if you want extra one-on-one time, you can buy these special packages. But we always say the hugs are free because once you're in, everyone's hugging each other, and it's that connection of family. They're not just, Trevor Donovan is not just trotted out for 5 minutes looking super lovely. Because let me tell you, Ryan Paevey, all of those guys, they're just as nice as some, even more than the Hallmark movies you see. They're down to earth, they're real, they care about their craft, and their fans, they know they have nothing without their fans. And I just like Brittany Bristow I met, and she's just a doll. I've adopted her as my little sister. Seriously, she's so genuine and so heartfelt. And at the first one, of course, let's be honest, most of the people were coming to see the guys. I mean, hello,
Right.
Do you know, have you seen the men that we have
Yes.
these things?
We have.
And, but then there's us, I'm like, okay, I'm doing a writing panel, an author panel, screenwriting panel. And then there's adorable Brittany over there. She was one of our, first women that we had.
Yeah.
And then once people got to know her, though, the women that love seeing the men resonated with her because she's so genuine. She shares her time. And so I am not like paid advertising. I'm not doing it for anything like that. From my heart, I have very limited time. And when they asked me, it was a crazy time, in my life, like a lot of us, but I believe in what Gabrielle and Sarah are doing so much. They're the founders. They're putting their own heart on the line and they're making connections. And I really feel like I'm part of the Rama Drama family. There's a fan page anyone can join. People are always popping into my Instas. We do stuff like this. I do virtual Christmas camps. I've had the fans, because we had to postpone the last one in West Palm Beach, because of COVID, which was definitely the right thing to do. I had my plane ticket literally, ready to go in January, right? We were all ready, but it was the right thing. And now we're all friends. I mean, and we've made this connection and people and it helps me. It was so funny. One of the great Rama Drama, I love him, Chad. He's always on.
Say hi, Chad.
Yes. I love him. And to meet him in person, though, and it was like he gave me tips. He's like, "Hey, you didn't bring your other book to sell," and I'm like, "Oh no, I didn't bring any books because I was like, oh, And meanwhile, the other Nancy had brought a bunch of books, and she goes, "Okay, let me tell you how this works, Karen. You need to bring your books." I'm like, "Okay, Chad," but that's what I mean. Like we were all there, we were all helping each other, and it was a highlight of my year for sure. I cannot wait for West Palm Beach in June. I'm like, just have to get here.
Part of me that's actually kind of glad it got postponed because now we've had the opportunity to have more people that will be there on the podcast. So we're making the connections and then, other people hopefully can make some connections. So I feel like we're going to go and we're going to have all these friends.
Right.
Oh, you are. I mean, I can't wait to see you guys. It's just going to be this happy family. And you're right. So you're able to introduce more people that, weren't able to come. And let's be honest, January, I remember asking Gabrielle, like, this is a tough time. Right after New Year's, and all the planes were getting delayed as well. So, everyone's like, it's a lot nicer to go to West Palm in the winter than the summer, traditionally, but we're going to be inside in air conditioning. What do we care? What do we care if it's summer in Florida? I mean, I heard somebody, and I go, at least we can get flights that aren't snowed, aren't canceled and aren't snowed in.
We've had Gabrielle
complain about leaving Rhode Island for Florida in January, but it was really quick. It was like Christmas, then New Year's, and then we have to go. So
exactly. And I was devastated. I got to be honest. I think we all did. We all looked forward to it, but it was the best decision. I mean, the whole idea is to be able to see each other and hug each other and have interaction. And that wouldn't have been safe. I wouldn't have felt safe. Nobody would have felt safe, and even not talking politics of any of it, it's just the responsible thing to do. I have my Christmas camps and I'm planning them for next year. And you go on, and before we wrap, I want to make sure my website, which is KarenSchaler.com, for anyone that we've been talking about all these activities and recipes and Christmas camp, but I have a free download for everybody. You just go to my homepage and my new book, the one we've been talking about, A Royal Christmas Fairy Tale, it says free gift. And what it is it's recipes, it's games, it's stuff from all of the novels and the movies. And it's my free DIY Christmas camp guide, things you can do at home. And even though we are in January, there's so much fun for Valentine's Day and things like that. And I'm going to keep adding content. So I'm like, make sure that I'm going to start doing Christmas camps, and my website that's going to be coming out, I'm unveiling a new website, and that'll tell where the next camps are and all of that. And it's the same camaraderie. It's the same. I did the same. I canceled them. I had some scheduled, and I couldn't in good faith invite people to come to a hotel and travel and spend their hard-earned money and potentially, be in danger. So we're just going to say a prayer that, we continue as a country to heal and try to, do what we need to do so we can get together in person.
Right.
Sure.
We had Gabrielle on our podcast, and we've also had Brittany on. And so we are very much looking forward to seeing everyone at Rama Drama. And that was one of our questions. Will you be there? So yes, you will. We're very excited that you will be there. I have one more weekend day to get rid of so I can get there. That's I have one gone. I got to get rid of one more, and then I can be there too. So it's
going to be amazing, you guys. And I think it's so much fun. And I know it, Gabrielle was saying too, we hate delaying when we're delaying, fun, but I think it's going to end up being for the best for all of us, for everybody that can make it. And join the fan group. I know you guys have, but make sure that if you're listening and you're not really sure, what is this drama, because we post so much fun content, and the Insta page is really fun. The Insta stories is super fun. And you get to know kind of all these like behind the scenes of your favorite actors. And Gabrielle and Sarah, they're so open. If you have a favorite actor or you have someone you'd like, go into the fan group or go onto Insta, ask who you might like, or maybe it's your dream, and she's carefully curates people. And I've seen it firsthand because I was with her, to make sure there's a million, and you go, why are they picked? Why was I picked? She picks people that are going to be good to the guests, that care and that have something to give back. So when I suggested Jeff Fisher, the director of Christmas Camp, come, it's because I've talked to Jeff. I had an hour podcast with Jeff. He's a teacher as well. He teaches screenwriting. He cares about people. He's going to go out of his way to connect. They're not going to just be like, pay me my money, I'm out of here. You know what I mean? And the writers and panelists, there's no money there. The actors, of course, their time and their agents would never let them get away with that, right? Rightly so. But nobody's there for any kind of payback. They're there because they love what they do. And if you watched it, you heard all of the guys. I love Trevor because he's just so down to earth, and of course the Heinies. I mean, we have all our fans. I mean, they have all their fan base that means so much. And I've never seen people connect. And everywhere I watch, Paul Green, everything, the way people were just hugging and supporting and careful. I mean, just caring and feeling like we're all a family now. And we need that right now. I need as much of that as I can get.
Absolutely.
And especially since this is the escape for so many people. So kind of learning about the people that you're watching on screen and how genuine they actually are in real life. It makes it even more special and you want to support them, and you want to support their movies and their time. And it's just, I admire what they've done. And they've only had one event, but I feel like they've really changed things.
I do think it's a totally different,
amazing women.
And I'll tell you, as a creator, I was so inspired, and so just the questions that were asked were so smart. The love that was shared. I write, obviously I don't write a book to just sit and read myself. I write for people. I write my movies and my novels, and to connect with the people and to hear their feedback to how it touched them. It brings me to tears every time. I mean, that's what it's about, and if you're not doing it for that reason, those movies or novels probably aren't going to resonate as much with people. I think there's a reason something touches you in a certain way, and like you were saying, Julie, there's certain things that you connect with. Maybe our backgrounds, while very different, have a similar thread, and there's a feeling there that tugs at you and I think that's what we're trying to do, and that's why there's so many different stories. So it is going to be a highlight for sure of the summer. I cannot wait. And I'm helping with planning some other little surprises. I can't tell you about, so you'll have to have Gabrielle and back on to tell you. But I just got off the phone with her. By the way, she said to say hi right before because we are plotting and planning even more fabulousness things, coming up. So she wanted to make sure to say hi to everybody. Yes, I want to thank you guys so much for having me on today. This was the best Friday. This was so much fun. Thank you so much for doing what you do and just for giving me some time to share my story.
Anytime, if you ever have anything you need to share and you need a platform, not that you need us, but we're here for you.
Are you kidding? I mean, I'm always so grateful to share. So thank you. I will be reaching out, but I just can't wait to see you in person soon.
We'll see you in a few months.
Okay. All right. Thanks, you guys.
All right. We're going to